Imagine founding a charity over 2 decades ago to save struggling pubs, personally visiting these community lifelines, donating your own money to keep them afloat, and then watching the government you technically reign over absolutely demolish those same pubs with tax policies so catastrophic that industry experts are calling it madness. That's the situation King Charles finds himself in right now, because a campaign group he launched back in 2001 has just absolutely let rip at Rachel Reeves for what they're calling a broken manifesto pledge. And before anyone gets too excited about constitutional crises, let's be clear. The king isn't personally involved in running this group or shaping their political views, so this isn't monarchy versus government drama. But it is a group that bears his founding legacy, furiously attacking the chancellor for policies they say will devastate the very pubs Charles spent years trying to protect. The irony is so thick you could serve it in a pint glass. So buckle up, because we're diving into how Rachel Reeves managed to break yet another promise, why the hospitality sector is absolutely furious, what eye-watering tax increases actually mean for your local pub, and whether the government's defense holds any water or if it's just more political spin disguised as support. This is UK Political Insight, and trust me, this one's got layers. Let's start with the backstory, because understanding why this matters requires knowing what the pub is the hub actually is, and why King Charles created it in the first place. Back in 2001, when he was still Prince Charles and deeply involved in various charitable causes, he launched this organization specifically to rescue pubs at risk of closure, particularly in rural areas. His reasoning was actually quite sound. He spoke about the unprecedented challenges faced by people living in rural locations and recognized that pubs weren't just places to grab a drink. They were community hubs, social centers, sometimes the only gathering place for miles around. He said pubs have a huge potential to act as one-stop shops, which was forward-thinking for its time. The idea was to help pubs diversify their services, maybe add a post office counter, sell local produce, offer community meeting spaces, basically become multifunctional centers that justified their existence beyond just serving alcohol. Since launching The Pub is the Hub, Charles made personal appearances at pubs that benefited from the program, showing genuine interest in their success. He even made personal donations to their community services fund, which suggests this wasn't just some token royal patronage where he showed up for a photo op and never thought about it again. This was a cause he actually cared about, probably because it aligned with his broader interests in rural communities, traditional crafts, and preserving British heritage. Pubs are quintessentially British institutions, right? They're woven into the social fabric of communities across the country. When they close, it's not just a business failure, it's a loss of communal identity and gathering space. Charles understood that, which is why he put real effort into trying to save them. Fast forward to 2024 and 2025, and the context has shifted dramatically. The hospitality sector, including pubs, got absolutely battered during the pandemic. Lockdowns, restrictions, changing consumer habits, rising costs, supply chain issues, staffing shortages. It's been a perfect storm of challenges. Many pubs that survived are hanging on by their fingernails, operating on thin margins and hoping things improve. This is the environment Rachel Reeves walked into as chancellor, and during the election campaign, Labour made specific promises about supporting businesses, including a commitment to replace the current business rates regime with a fairer system. Business rates, for those unfamiliar, are essentially property taxes that businesses pay based on the value of their premises. They're widely hated because they're rigid, don't account for actual business performance, and can be crippling for businesses with large premises but modest profits, which describes a lot of pubs. The Pub is the Hub and other hospitality organizations got excited about Labour's manifesto pledge. Finally, someone was going to fix this broken system. Except then the November budget happened, and instead of replacing business rates with something fairer, Reeves announced she would scrap business rates relief for the hospitality sector over the next 3 years. Relief, for those keeping score, means paying less than the full amount. It's a discount that recognizes hospitality businesses need support. Scrapping it means those businesses will now pay significantly more. The Pub is the Hub characterized this as eye-watering increases in taxes that would cause huge huge damage to the sector. That's not minor criticism. That's a direct accusation that the Chancellor's policy will actively harm the very businesses she promised to help. Andrew Slee, who's the chief executive of the Society of Independent Brewers and Associates, absolutely did not hold back in his assessment. He said Labor committed to leveling the playing field, but I have been trying to make sense of what happened in the budget since the full horror of it emerged. The full horror, that's quite a phrase. He's not talking about a minor disappointment or a slightly unfortunate policy tweak. He's describing it as horror, which suggests genuine shock at how bad the policy is. Then he went even further. It is such catastrophically bad policy that I can only think it was a mistake. No one could have looked at this and thought, this makes sense, so we'll go with it. It is madness. Catastrophically bad, a mistake, madness. These aren't measured diplomatic criticisms. This is someone genuinely baffled that anyone could think this policy was a good idea. The accusation of breaking a manifesto pledge is particularly damning because we've already covered extensively on this channel how Labor made 52 separate promises not to raise taxes on working people and then immediately hiked national insurance. Now we're seeing another broken promise, this time specifically about business rates reform. The pattern is becoming impossible to ignore. Labor says one thing to get elected and does something completely different once in power. And before anyone jumps in with, but circumstances change. Sure, they do, but circumstances don't force you to do the exact opposite of what you promised. If you can't replace business rates with something fairer immediately, you could at least maintain existing relief while you work on reform. Instead, Reeves chose to scrap relief, which is actively making things worse, not just failing to make them better. The group expressed what they called Rio anger among publicans and pub businesses across England, who understandably feel badly let down. And that phrase, understandably feel badly let down, is doing a lot of work, because it suggests this isn't just whining from businesses that don't want to pay tax. This is genuine betrayal. These people voted for Labor, or at least didn't actively campaign against them, partly based on promises about business support. And now they're facing tax increases that could literally put them out of business. That's not feeling let down because your expectations weren't met. That's feeling let down because you were explicitly lied to. Keir Starmer, displaying the kind of timing that would be funny if it wasn't so tragic, said just last month that small businesses are the beating heart of our economy and the backbone of our communities, which is lovely rhetoric, beautiful even, exactly the kind of thing you want to hear from a prime minister, except his chancellor then announced policies that will damage those same small businesses, suggesting either Starmer has no idea what his government is doing or the warm words are completely meaningless. Either option is pretty bad. You can't credibly call small businesses the beating heart of the economy while simultaneously implementing policies that stop that heart from beating. Well, you can, but people notice the contradiction. Now let's talk about what the Treasury's defense of this policy looks like, because they didn't just ignore the criticism. They issued a statement claiming they're actually protecting pubs with a $4.3 billion support package. A Treasury spokesman said without the support, pubs would face a 45% increase in the total bills they'll pay next year. Because of the support we've put in place, we've got that down to just 4%. On the surface, that sounds pretty good, right? They're reducing a 45% increase to just 4%. That's significant. Except here's the problem with that framing. They're taking credit for partially mitigating a problem they created. It's like setting someone's house on fire and then expecting gratitude for calling the fire brigade. The 45% increase exists because of policy changes this government made. They don't get hero points for reducing the damage of their own policy. The Treasury spokesman continued listing other supposed support measures. This comes on top of our efforts to ease licensing to help more venues offer pavement drinks and put on one-off events, maintaining our cut to alcohol duty on draft pints, and capping corporation tax. Okay, let's break that down. Easing licensing for pavement drinks. Sure, that's nice, but it's not going to save pubs that can't afford their business rates. Maintaining the cut to alcohol duty on draft pints is keeping an existing benefit, not providing new support. Capping corporation tax, great for profitable businesses. But if you're a pub operating on thin margins or barely breaking even, corporation tax rates aren't your main concern. These are the kind of talking points that sound impressive in a press release, but don't actually address the core problem, which is that pubs are facing significant tax increases at a time when they're already struggling. What makes this particularly galling is the context we've already established. Labor promised to reform business rates. They didn't just promise to tinker around the edges. They promised reform, which implies fundamental change to a system everyone agrees is broken. Instead, what we got was revis relief, which makes the existing broken system even more punishing. That's not reform. That's not even maintaining the status quo. That's actively making things worse while claiming you're being helpful. It's gaslighting on a policy level. The anger from the pub is the hub carries extra weight because of its royal connection. Now, to be absolutely clear, King Charles isn't involved in running the organization and isn't responsible for their political statements. He can't be seen to be criticizing government policy because of constitutional neutrality. But the organization he founded, which operates under his legacy and represents causes he clearly cared about as Prince of Wales, is now furiously attacking government policy.